You've seen it all online, or so you thought. Tonight, we dive into the stories that haunt the darkest corners of the web. Welcome to LurmoStories. Once you hear these, you won't want to look at your screen the same way again.
Posting this here because the internal chain of command is already pretending they don't see the alerts. I'm a safety compliance officer for a major rideshare platform. My job is to audit driver activity and investigate anomalies. 90% of the time, it's mundane. Mismatched plates, expired insurance, GPS drift. Last week, something came in that didn't fit any category. It started with a single incident ticket. Unregistered driver picked me up. Car didn't match app. Driver said system was down. Passenger left no other details, just a timestamp, 2:11 a.m. outside a 24-hour grocery in Fresno. I cross-checked vehicle data. No active vehicles within a half-mile radius at that moment. No ghost pings, no caching errors. The app showed the passenger waiting alone for 3 minutes, then ride completed 40 minutes later. That shouldn't be possible. I pulled the ride's GPS breadcrumb trail. It looked normal at a glance, straight route along the highway, except every ping came from a device ID that doesn't exist in our registry. Device IDs don't just appear. They're linked to onboarding, SIM verification, packet signatures. This one was empty, like someone had manually written coordinates into the system in real time, but with the latency of a physical phone. When I pushed deeper, I found something else. Along the route, at random intervals, the speed registered as 0. Not slow, not paused in traffic, 0. Full stops in places a driver wouldn't stop. A field behind a shuttered diner. The shoulder of a rural road with no pull-off. A fenced utility substation. The ride lasted 40 minutes, but the raw event log contained nearly 90 minutes of data. It was as if something doubled back, stalled, drifted, then stitched its timeline to look normal. I called the passenger. She answered immediately, like she'd been waiting for someone to ask. She told me she got into a dark sedan because it pulled up exactly where her app said it would. The driver never turned to look at her. He kept both hands on the wheel, too close together, like he didn't know how to hold it. When she asked why the car didn't match the app, he said quietly, "The system is slow tonight." Then she added something I wasn't prepared for. She said that during the ride, the interior lights kept flickering, like the car couldn't decide if the doors were open or shut. And every time the light blinked on, she saw the driver's face slightly differently positioned. Chin lower, head angled more toward his chest, as though he were adjusting himself tiny increments at a time. "And the road?" she asked me. "Did your GPS show the stops?" I told her yes. She exhaled shakily and said, "Good, then you know I'm not making it up." I asked what happened at those stops. She said, "He got out." I asked why. She said, "He would just stand there, right outside my window. Like he was waiting for me to open the door." She said he never spoke again after that. But each time he returned to the driver's seat, something about him seemed compressed, like there was less space between his shoulders and the dashboard. At 2:51 a.m., the GPS registered the car stopping behind a closed church. That was the final anomaly before the ride ended. I pulled the exterior camera feed for that timestamp, and that's when I realized the car itself wasn't ours either. Even in infrared, the plates were invisible, not blurred, not removed, just absent, like the system couldn't see them at all. I kept replaying that infrared frame, hoping it was just artifacting. The car's shape was wrong, no clean silhouette, no recognizable model lines, just a dark mass reflecting the lot lights in uneven patches. Our cameras auto-recognize thousands of makes and models. This one returned null every time. I escalated it to our systems engineer, Mark. He came down to my desk after 10 minutes, holding a printout I hadn't requested. "You saw this part yet?" he asked. He handed me a segment of the route where the GPS jittered. The coordinates didn't just shift, they folded. 3 identical timestamps, 3 locations, layered so tightly it looked like the device existed in all of them for the same second. "That's impossible," I said. Mark nodded. "Yeah, that's why I ran a correlation across all active ride logs for the last 60 days. He pulled up a heat map. 12 other rides, scattered across California, Oregon, Nevada. Different drivers listed, different passengers, different cities, but all with a single shared anomaly. A device ID that attaches itself to legitimate rides for a few minutes, then vanishes. We call this kind of thing a parasite session, Mark said. Usually, it's some exploit testing, but this one doesn't behave like code. He paused. It behaves like a car. That phrasing stuck with me. I went back to the Fresno case and checked the church stop again. The passenger had said the driver stepped out repeatedly during the ride. If that was true, the interior camera should have captured door movement, cabin shift, anything. But our interior feed showed only static darkness. Not black, absence. The kind of void you get when a sensor disconnects mid-frame. Except, on the timestamp right before the ride ended, the interior camera flickered for less than a second. And in that flicker, I finally saw the passenger. She was pressed against the door, knees pulled up, trying to make herself smaller. Her eyes locked on something outside the windshield. In the next frame, she was gone. The camera went dark again. But something else appeared in that one visible moment. A shape in the driver's seat leaned forward, but not in any human posture. It looked like a torso stretched toward the dash without shifting its hips, as if the spine bent in a straight, unnatural arc. Its head was tilted too far down, chin nearly touching the chest, hands resting on the wheel too delicately, like they hadn't fully settled into place. I called the passenger back. She picked up on the first ring. "You told me he kept getting out," I said. "Why?" "I don't know," she whispered. He would stop, walk around my side of the car, and stand there, not knocking, not trying to open the door, just listening. Listening for what? I think he wanted to hear if I moved. I asked her why she didn't run. She said, because the doors wouldn't unlock, and the windows, every time I tried to lower one, they went back up on their own. She hesitated, then added, "Are you sure your system didn't register another driver nearby that night?" I told her no. She said, then I shouldn't have been able to see headlights behind us at the church. I sat forward. "You saw another car?" "No," she said. "I saw headlights, but there was no car attached to them. They were just floating in the lot, pointing at us." "And the driver?" I asked. "He didn't look at them," she whispered. "He looked at me, like he was waiting to see what I'd do when they got closer." I asked how the ride ended. She said she didn't remember getting dropped off. One moment she was in the car, the next she was standing outside her apartment, knees bruised, keys in hand. App showed ride complete, no notes. Before hanging up, she said one last thing. "When I shut my door, I heard another one shut behind me." Like someone was matching my movements from just out of sight. I started to speak, but she cut in sharply. "And I think he knows you're asking about him. My app's been lighting up with phantom notifications all morning. Rides I didn't request, cars that don't exist." She paused. "One of them says it's already outside." I drove to the operations hub before sunrise. I needed physical logs, raw packet data, tower registrations, anything not exposed to remote access. If the passenger was getting phantom ride notifications, something was probing her device, or ours. When I arrived, the overnight team lead, Harris, waved me over without speaking. He had a monitor pulled up with the Fresno device ID isolated. It was pinging again, right now, but not from California. "Look at the tower triangulation," Harris said. The signal was bouncing between 3 points outside Phoenix. Same impossible folding timestamps. Same straight-line paths that broke into stutters like the device kept pausing and resuming in microbursts. "What's the vehicle assignment?" I asked. He swallowed. "It attached itself to one of our cars this time." A legitimate driver, someone on a routine airport pickup, had just accepted a ride. And the parasite session had grafted onto his profile so cleanly the system flagged nothing. Except for one detail. His onboard camera feed wouldn't load. I called him immediately. No answer. I tried again, straight to voicemail. Harris checked the tracker. "He's pulling into a business park," he said. "No passengers picked up. ETA should still be 10 minutes out." I opened the full-resolution street maps and zoomed in on the business park. It was empty at this hour. Long rows of single-story offices with mirrored windows, the kind that reflect headlights as blank squares. Then, the GPS blipped. The car stopped behind one of the buildings. No entrance there, just a stretch of loading docks and dumpsters. Another blip. Speed, 0 miles per hour. Another. Speed, 0 miles per hour. Then the coordinates drifted several feet, then snapped back, like movement within a confined space. I told Harris to push audio once the feed reconnected. After several seconds of dead air, a faint sound finally came through. Breathing, but not from the driver. It was too close mic'd, too steady, like someone leaning over the dash, exhaling directly onto the microphone. Then, something scraped lightly across the interior plastic. Slow, deliberate, like fingertips that hadn't fully decided how many joints to bend. I contacted Phoenix PD through the emergency pipeline, gave them coordinates, emphasized the driver was potentially trapped. They dispatched units immediately. While waiting, the feed flickered. For a fraction of a second, the interior camera returned. The driver wasn't in the seat. The seatbelt was latched, pulled tight, as if restraining something invisible. The headrest was angled forward, unnaturally far, indenting like pressure was applied from a shape the camera refused to render. A small movement drew my eye, the steering wheel turning a few degrees left, then right, then stopping at a perfect center. Too measured to be human hesitation, more like calibration. Then the audio cut out with a soft, wet click. PD arrived 6 minutes later. They found the car parked exactly where the map showed, engine running, hazard lights blinking despite no trigger from the dash. But the vehicle was empty. No sign of forced entry, no footprints, no drag marks. The driver's phone was still clipped to the mount, passenger side window slightly fogged from the inside. On the glass was a single smear, not a handprint, more like someone pressing their face too close, leaving only heat and moisture without features. The responding officer asked if we wanted the vehicle impounded. Before I could answer, the hazard lights stopped blinking on their own. The engine shut off. The door locks clicked shut simultaneously, like a final punctuation mark. Then the GPS device, our hardware installed by our techs, unpaired from the system. It didn't power down. It didn't error out. It simply ceased to exist in the registry, the same way the Fresno one did. Later that night, after the official report was filed, I received a ride request alert on my personal phone. I don't use the passenger app. I've never installed it. The notification said, "Your driver is arriving now. Vehicle, unlisted. ETA, 0 minutes. Status, waiting outside." There was no option to cancel, only view driver. The preview thumbnail was dark, but for a millisecond, as the screen refreshed, I saw the inside of a car, not mine, and the faint outline of someone sitting perfectly still behind the wheel. Head lowered, hands too close together, waiting for any movement at all. And when the screen finished loading, the image went black, just like the cameras. The report starts the moment I open the archive folder labeled Auction 17B. I'm alone in the task force bullpen, half the cubicle's dark, humming with old desktop fans, the kind of air that feels like recycled breath. I'm noting everything because whoever handled this case before me left mid-shift and didn't come back. The listing was found on a darknet marketplace, usually used for stolen medical records and banking dumps. But this one sat in a category that shouldn't exist. Human assets, verified. No vendor history, no escrow. Just a single post, timestamped 3:12 Eastern Standard Time. The title reads, Lot Number A617, Male Subject, Full Privileges, Condition Guaranteed. What pulls me in isn't the text, it's the preview thumbnail. At first glance, it looks like a regular security camera still. A man sitting in a bare room, hands on his knees, staring at the floor. Nothing unusual, except the EXIF metadata was manually reconstructed. Someone deliberately added location tags, but the coordinates don't point to a warehouse or safe house. They point to a residential neighborhood outside Dayton, Ohio. A normal street, lawns, mailboxes. The listing description is where the tone changes. It's written almost clinically. Subject remains compliant at all times. Eye contact discouraged. Do not address him by the name he uses. He responds only to the one we assigned. Keep lights above 40%. Do not let him touch reflective surfaces. Shipping available within the continental US. There's a second image embedded deeper in the HTML, hidden under a collapsed field. I extract it manually. It shows the same man, but he's looking directly at the camera now. No, through it. Pupils blown wide. His expression isn't fear or anger. It's more like anticipation. And behind him, in the corner of the frame, there's something tall, out of focus. Not a person, more like a silhouette shaped wrong for the room's geometry. The shadow doesn't line up with the overhead light. I start a reverse search of the man's face through missing persons databases. Nothing. No hits, no approximations, not even a partial biometric match. That's unusual. Everyone shows up somewhere. At 4:02, the listing updates automatically. New text appears. Bidder authentication approved. Inspection window begins now. I never clicked anything. Behind me, a desk phone rings once, then cuts off. When I check the caller log, it shows an inbound number from the same Dayton neighborhood the coordinates pointed to. Same house number repeated 3 times in the street field, like someone typed it while shaking. When I return to the listing, there's a live chat prompt blinking. The inspector has arrived. And the timestamp matches the phone ring. The message stays on my screen for a full 30 seconds before updating again on its own. Please confirm visual link. There's no camera enabled on my workstation. This machine is air-gapped from external hardware, standard for darknet forensics, yet the prompt pulses like it's waiting for me to nod. I forward the listing mirror to the task force server, but the upload doesn't complete. The status bar freezes at 66%. An error pings. Media client retained original. I've never seen that. It means the file refused to be duplicated. At 4:11, another hidden field unfolds inside the listing. It contains a new image. This time, the camera angle is lower, near the floor. The man is closer to the lens, knees bent, like he crouched down to look directly into it. His face is wrong in this one. Mouth slightly open, the skin around his jaw darker, like bruising or ink bleeding from beneath the surface. Something else stands behind him again, closer, still out of focus, still tall. The caption beneath the image reads, "He wants to meet the inspector." I pull logs from the marketplace node. Whoever posted the listing rerouted through 7 different onion relays, but one of the exit signatures pings briefly in Ohio. Not an IP trace, just a packet handshake that shouldn't be possible unless someone physically forced the relay to broadcast. That requires equipment none of these criminals ever use. At 4:19, the bullpen lights flicker. Motion sensors think no one's here. I wave an arm, the lights stay dimmer than usual. The overhead fluorescents hum like they're warming up after a power outage. When I look back at the monitor, the chat prompt has changed. Do not look away from him. I'm not sure how the system knows where I'm looking, but the man's face in the newest frame has shifted again. His eyes aren't blown wide anymore. They're narrowed, as if he's studying something out of frame. Something on my side. A coworker, Agent Mendez, walks into the bullpen early. He's halfway to the coffee maker when he stops and whispers, "Why is there someone else in your office?" I tell him there isn't. He steps closer, squinting past my chair toward the glass wall behind me. His expression changes. Not fear, just a kind of confusion I've never heard from him before. Right there, tall guy. You don't see him? I turn so fast my chair skids, but the glass wall is empty. Reflection normal. Hallway normal. No one. Mendez backs away from the door like he stepped into the wrong building. Man, never mind. Forget it. I check the listing again. A new line of text unfurls. They always see him first. Then beneath it, as if typed slowly, letter by letter, "Are you ready for inspection?" I document everything because procedure demands it, but my notes are getting harder to maintain. The listing keeps updating faster than I can type. The chat module flashes. Open the door. I don't. The bullpen is silent except for the fans and the fluorescent hum, but the building feels full. Not busy, full. At 4:27, the image refreshes again. The man in the room is standing now, closer to the camera than physically possible without pressing against the lens. His face looks swollen or stretched, but not in a way skin should move. His mouth is slightly open like before, but this time I can see something dark behind his teeth, like fabric soaked in water. The background shape, the one that kept appearing, finally sharpens. It isn't a shadow, it's a doorway. A second doorway behind him that doesn't match the room's structure. Too tall, too narrow, like someone carved a slit into the air and forgot to close it. A 4th line appears on the listing. The door on your side has been chosen. I hear something then, faint, like someone knocking inside the drywall. Not on the office door, inside the wall. 3 taps, slow, deliberate. I check the security cameras through the internal network. All feeds return static, except the one aimed down the hallway outside our unit. That feed shows the corridor empty, but the timestamp jumps backwards every few seconds, looping the same 4 frames. When I toggle back to my workstation, the listing has been replaced entirely. No marketplace layout, no interface, just a black background and a single live stream window. My own office, my own desk, my own back facing the screen. The camera angle is too high to be the building's security system, and in the stream, behind my chair, the tall shape Mendez claimed to see stands perfectly still, almost brushing the ceiling. Its outline is rigid, not human, as if someone draped skin over a frame that didn't match a person's proportions. No face, no hands, just the suggestion of something leaning forward, studying me the same way the man in the room did. The live stream flickers. The figure moves a few inches closer each time the frame glitches, though I never hear a step. A final line appears beneath the feed. Inspection complete. Prepare for transfer. The office door handle clicks, just once. Not turning, testing. I grab the emergency power kill switch under my desk and slam it. Everything goes dark. Monitors, task force servers, hallway lights. The whole floor drops into blackout. Protocol says the system shouldn't reboot without admin authentication. But 3 seconds later, all the screens ignite at once, brighter than before, and every single monitor in the room, mine, Mendez's, even the unplugged ones, displays the man from the listing, standing, waiting, and that impossible doorway yawning open behind him, as if depth means nothing. The last entry auto-saves itself into my transcript log without my input. Transport begins when you look away. I keep writing, because the moment I stop, I'll have nothing left to look at except the screen. Posting this here because the official channels won't touch it anymore. They closed the case last week, called it resource reallocation. If any of you ex-guys dig into cold cases, maybe you'll see the pattern they refused to acknowledge. The apartment in question is Unit 3B of the Harper Street complex, a 6-story concrete block built in the 70s. Straight-line hallways, flickering tube lights, that buzzing ballast hum you feel more than hear. 5 missing persons over 8 years, all last pinged within 30 feet of that door. Not inside it, near it. I first stepped into the building in March after the most recent disappearance. A delivery driver, 23, left a package for 3B at 8:42 p.m. His car remained idling at the curb, door open, phone on the seat. Lobby camera shows him entering on foot, package in hand. It does not show him leaving. No dead angles, no blind spots. He simply doesn't exit. My partner, Nichols, knocked on 3B. No response. He pressed his ear against the wood, then took a half step back like someone brushed past him on the other side. I asked what he heard. He shook his head and said, "Nothing, but somebody's standing right behind this door." We forced entry. The apartment was cold, really cold, for spring. Thermostat set to 73, vents blowing warm air, but the room temperature barely hit 55. Place was furnished in the bare minimum. Mattress on the floor, metal table, single chair. No clothes in the closet, no toiletries. Kitchen cabinets empty, except for a stack of identical plastic cups, each spotless. There was a smell, too. Not rot, not chemical. Something like wet concrete after a storm, but heavier, settling in the throat. The far wall had subtle dark streaks, long vertical smears that glow slightly under UV. Not blood. Lab couldn't identify the substance. They said it wasn't organic, but it wasn't paint, grease, or dust either. Nichols found the package on the counter, unopened. The label matched the missing driver's manifest. Before we bagged it, he asked me to stop. He said he heard someone whispering in the vent grate. Soft, breathy, syllables he couldn't make out. I knelt beside him and pressed my ear to the metal. Nothing. When I stood up, he looked pale, sweating. "There are 5 voices," he said, all of them asking the same thing. I asked what question. He stared past me toward the streaked wall. Where is the rest of me? He wouldn't stay in the apartment after that. Neither would the crime scene guys. I spent another 30 minutes inside alone, taking photographs, but the silence felt wrong, too weighted, like the room was listening. At 9:13 p.m., my body cam recorded something I didn't hear until later review. A soft knock from inside the bedroom closet. 3 slow taps, then one more. The closet was empty. That's when I realized every missing person had stood exactly where I was standing, within arm's reach of the same door, breathing the same cold air. And none of them walked out. I went back to the precinct that night with Nichols, but he wouldn't even finish the paperwork. His hands were trembling so badly he couldn't type. He kept rubbing his thumb over his fingertips like he was checking if they were still there. Before clocking out, he told me, "If they add me to the list, tell my brother not to look for me. He didn't come in the next morning, or the day after. His phone rang once, then disconnected. When I went to his apartment for a welfare check, his mailbox still had yesterday's mail in it, keys inside his locked car. Officially, he's absent without leave. Unofficially, he's missing person number 6. After that, I requested permission to revisit 3B. The lieutenant denied it, said the building owner filed a complaint about us disturbing tenants. There are no tenants on that floor, just 3B and 2 vacant units. So I went off book, took an unmarked sedan, and went alone. The hallway felt tighter than before, like the walls had warped inward. The lights buzzed louder. I tried the knob to 3B. Locked, of course, but when I pressed my palm to the door, the wood was warm. Too warm, like someone had been standing on the other side with their hand against the same spot. I called out, "Is anyone inside?" The building answered with a soft vibration under my feet, like a low-frequency hum rising through the foundation. Then something brushed the back of my jacket, gently, like fingertips tracking the fabric. I turned fast. No one there. Just the empty hallway, concrete walls blotched with water stains. I used the override key from evidence. When the lock clicked, it sounded almost reluctant, like the mechanism resisted until the last second. Inside, the temperature had dropped even further. I could see my breath. Every surface had a faint moisture sheen, though there was no leak, no condensation source. The streaks on the far wall had spread, longer now, branching thin lines snaking toward the floor. I checked the vents again. Nothing unusual, until I leaned close. This time, I heard it. Not words, not whispers. Breathing. Slow, shallow, and too close, like someone was inches from the grate, matching my own breaths on purpose. I stepped back, and it stopped immediately. On the table, someone had arranged the plastic cups in a perfect circle. 12 cups. There had only been 8 before. I checked my photos to confirm. Someone had added 4 identical cups while the apartment was sealed by police tape. At 3:42 p.m., my radio crackled with static, then a voice layered under the distortion. "Detective?" I didn't move. The voice repeated, quieter. "Detective, open the closet." I raised my flashlight toward the bedroom. The closet door was shut, same as we'd left it. But something about its shape was wrong. The bottom edge was flush with the carpet before. Now it sat a half-inch higher, like the frame had been stretched. My hand shook when I turned the knob. The door opened too easily. Inside, the closet was deeper than physically possible, an empty rectangular shaft extending several feet back into darkness. Drywall didn't go that deep. Building schematics confirmed it later. But standing there, I swear, the air moved inside that hollow space, like something had just stepped backward to stay out of view. I pointed my flashlight forward. The beam didn't reach the far end. It just dissolved midair, swallowed by a matte black that wasn't shadow. Then, from inside the darkness, 5 distinct voices whispered at once, layered, overlapping, all speaking the same phrase. "You shouldn't be here alone." My radio dropped out completely after that. Full static, then nothing. I tried to step back, but the carpet under my shoe held for a second, like something underneath had grabbed a handful of fibers. Then, it let go. I backed out of the room, keeping my eyes on the closet until I reached the hallway. I locked 3B behind me and didn't breathe until I reached the street. That was 2 days ago, and last night, someone slid a note under my home door. It wasn't handwritten, it wasn't printed, it was typed on the missing delivery driver's scanner label printer. 4 words. "You left it open." I didn't sleep. I sat in my living room with every light on, badge in one hand, service weapon in the other, staring at that note on the floor. The adhesive label paper was still warm, like it had been printed seconds before I found it. No footprints, no noise, no sign of forced entry. At 5:12 a.m., my door camera pinged. I checked the footage. The hallway was empty, nobody approaching, nobody leaving. Yet one frame, just a single frame, showed my door slightly ajar. Not opening, not closing, just open, as if the building blinked and the door forgot where it was supposed to be. I reported all of this to the lieutenant. He shut my file, leaned forward, and told me the city is done pouring hours into ghost leads. If I keep pushing, he'll remove me from active duty for psychological evaluation. He said it calmly, like he was telling me the weather. I asked him why the building records were sealed since 1994. I asked why the last 3 detectives assigned to earlier disappearances either quit or transferred without notice. He didn't answer. He just told me I needed rest. So I went back to Harper Street one last time. Off-duty, unarmed except for a pocket flashlight and the override key I never returned. The lobby was empty. The elevator doors stood open like they were waiting for me. I took the stairs instead. On the third floor, the air felt heavy, thick with humidity, even though the vents were blowing cold. A faint metallic tapping echoed from somewhere deep in the building. Slow, irregular, like a pipe expanding and contracting. Except it didn't echo right. It wasn't traveling through the ductwork. It was coming from inside the walls themselves. Unit 3B's door was unlocked. I know I locked it. I checked it twice. But now it hung slightly open. Not enough to see inside, just enough to show darkness leaking through the crack like smoke, without motion. When I pushed it open, every plastic cup in the apartment was stacked in a perfect column in the center of the room. 27 cups high, impossibly straight, nothing supporting it. As I took a step closer, the entire stack collapsed silently, without a single clatter. The cups didn't roll, they didn't bounce. They simply settled around my shoes in a perfect circle. In the bedroom, the closet door was open. The shaft inside had grown deeper, much deeper. The darkness reached outward now, not just inward, a matte void that seemed to drink in the flashlight before it reached anything solid. And then I saw something. Not a face, not a figure, just the impression of movement, like the suggestion of someone turning around inside a narrow corridor, brushing against drywall that shouldn't exist. A voice drifted out, soft, level, almost gentle. "Detective, they're not missing." Another voice layered over it, then another, then all five. "They're here." The carpet under my feet tightened again, this time more deliberate, like fingers interlacing around my ankles. I fell backward, tore my leg free, and crawled into the hallway. As I pulled myself out, the apartment door swung shut on its own, the latch clicking with finality. I didn't run. I couldn't. My legs felt numb. I just stared at the door, waiting for it to open again. It didn't. Back at the precinct, I tried to file a report. The system auto-logged me out each time I typed 3B. Each attempt erased itself. My body cam footage from that day corrupted instantly, except for the audio. 30 seconds of breathing. Not mine. I'm typing this now because Internal Affairs called me in this morning. Someone claimed I forced entry into a condemned building. They said Harper Street complex has been vacant for years, sealed after structural collapse risks. They showed me photos, boarded windows, caution tape, city notices dated months ago. But I was there yesterday. The lights worked. The elevator worked. The hallway floors were clean. Before ending the interview, the IA officer asked me one last question. "If the building is condemned, detective, what apartment were you investigating?" I didn't answer, because behind him, on the table, was a single plastic cup, still wet with condensation. No continuation. The file ends here.
You close the screen, but the stories linger. And you know as well as we do, there's always another one just around the corner. Thanks for joining LurmoStories. Don't worry, we'll be back with more soon.